The world 2.9 million years ago was a place of extremes. Africa's vast landscapes stretched endlessly, alternating between parched savannas and dense, shadowy wetlands. Rivers cut jagged paths through the terrain, their waters shimmering under a relentless sun. Life thrived, but only for those who understood the delicate balance between predator and prey. In these early ecosystems, survival was never guaranteed. The earth had not yet been tamed by human hands, and every creature, from the smallest rodent to the largest predator, played a dangerous game of instinct and adaptation. Among these creatures, two lineages were quietly evolving, shaping the future of life in ways that would ripple through time: the human ancestors, bipedal in cunning, and the giant crocodile ancestors, lurking, patient, and lethal. These early human ancestors, not yet fully Homo, were agile and alert. Their bones told a story of constant movement, of muscles honed for endurance, not speed. They scavenged and hunted opportunistically, their tools rudimentary but effective. Stones were sharpened into crude cutting implements, sticks were adapted into digging tools, and any advantage could mean the difference between life and death. But even with these tools, they were never truly safe. The world was filled with predators far larger, faster, and stronger than themselves. Lions prowled the open grasslands, hyenas scavenged with terrifying efficiency, and massive snakes slithered unseen, ready to strike. Yet perhaps the most dangerous creatures were the crocodile ancestors. Towering above the crocodiles we know today, these ancient, primeval predators perfectly adapted to their aquatic homes and the edge of the land. Giant crocodile ancestors dominated riverbanks and lakes. Some species reached astonishing lengths, rivaling the size of a small boat. Their jaws were wide enough to engulf a human ancestor in a single bite, their teeth serrated like the knives that human ancestors would one day fashion. Yet they were not mindless killing machines. They were patient, intelligent in a primal way, capable of ambushing prey with astonishing precision. Every movement of water betrayed a potential meal, and every sound near the water's edge could seal a creature's fate. Human ancestors approaching these waterways faced a terrifying choice: risk a deadly ambush to drink and bathe, or risk dehydration and exposure in the open savanna. Life along the rivers was a delicate dance. Early humans had to read the subtle signs of the landscape: the ripple of water, the broken reeds, the sudden absence of birdsong. Predators, however, had no such hesitation. A slight disturbance in the water could trigger an explosion of jaws and claws. It was here, at the margin of land and water, that the stories of survival, ingenuity, and terror unfolded. The encounters between human ancestors and the crocodile giants were not frequent, but when they occurred, they were unforgettable, shaping behavior, intelligence, and social cooperation. Human ancestors often traveled in small groups, clusters of individuals relying on collective vigilance. Some would scout ahead, while others guarded the rear, eyes scanning the landscape for both prey and danger. Their tools, though primitive, allowed them to exploit food sources that were otherwise inaccessible. But these tools offered little protection against a creature capable of snapping a limb with a single movement. The crocodile ancestors relied on surprise and sheer power. Their bodies, armored with thick, bony plates, were impervious to most attacks, and when submerged, they became nearly invisible, a shadow beneath the water's surface, waiting for an unsuspecting victim to venture too close. The first encounters were always mistakes: a misstep along a muddy riverbank, or a moment of distraction while foraging. A lone human ancestor might wade into shallow water to retrieve a water plant or catch a fish, unaware of the eyes watching beneath the surface. Then, with terrifying speed, the crocodile would strike. The water erupted, a blur of scales and teeth, and the human ancestor would barely have time to react. Survival depended not just on strength or speed, but on awareness and the ability to read danger before it fully materialized. Every successful escape from such an ambush would be remembered, stories passed down through generations, encoded not in words, but in cautious instincts. These deadly encounters forced human ancestors to innovate. They learned to approach water sources more carefully, to create rudimentary lookout points, and to recognize the signs of lurking predators. Stones could be thrown to distract, fires could be used to intimidate, and even simple noise could serve as a warning. Over time, these behaviors became ingrained, a primitive intelligence born from the necessity of survival. The crocodile ancestors, in turn, refined their strategies. Ambush spots were carefully chosen, times of attack optimized, and their patience became almost legendary. They could remain motionless for hours, waiting for the slightest opportunity. The ecological interplay was complex. Crocodile ancestors controlled access to water, dictating where and when human ancestors could drink. This in turn influenced migration patterns, tool use, and even social structures. Waterways were no longer mere sources of life, they were arenas of conflict, teaching early humans lessons that would echo across millennia. These lessons were not taught in classrooms or through stories, they were written in blood, in the narrow escapes and occasional fatal encounters that shaped evolution itself. Predation pressures drove adaptation. Human ancestors developed heightened senses, sharper reflexes, and a deeper understanding of risk. They observed the crocodile's behaviors, how they lingered in shaded pools, how their eyes broke the water's surface just long enough to gauge movement. From these observations, human ancestors learned patience and timing, the value of silence, and the critical importance of cooperation. Even the use of tools evolved in response. Rocks were no longer just instruments to break nuts or sharpen sticks, they became weapons, deterrents, and symbols of human ingenuity in the face of deadly opposition. The crocodile ancestors, meanwhile, were at the top of their game. Their anatomy allowed them to dominate both water and land margins. Powerful tails propelled them with sudden bursts of speed, while their muscular jaws delivered a force that could crush bone. Evolution had armed them to perfection. In the prehistoric ecosystem, they were apex predators, feared by many, respected by all, and unavoidable by those who relied on water to survive. They were silent teachers of caution, guardians of rivers, and merciless executioners when misjudged. Over time, repeated encounters between human and crocodile ancestors may have influenced broader evolutionary paths. Selection favored those who were cautious, alert, and socially cooperative. Groups that could communicate danger, strategize approaches to water, and understand the subtleties of predator behavior had a higher chance of survival. Cognitive development, social bonds, and even early forms of strategic thinking were likely shaped, in part, by these terrifying encounters. The crocodile ancestors unwittingly pushed human evolution forward, acting as a crucible in which intelligence, adaptability, and community were tested and refined. Yet not every encounter ended in tragedy. Sometimes human ancestors succeeded, and their ingenuity shone. They learned to exploit crocodile behavior, drawing them away with decoys or attacking when the reptiles were vulnerable. Opportunistic hunting or scavenging after a crocodile had fed on another prey might have provided unexpected nutrition. These moments of success reinforced the idea that knowledge, awareness, and cooperation could bend the odds, even against a creature designed by evolution to be virtually unstoppable. The tension between human and crocodile ancestors was a defining element of prehistoric life. It was a relationship marked not by malice, but by survival. Each species existed in a delicate balance, one dependent on cunning and adaptability, the other on power and precision. Rivers, lakes, and wetlands became stages for this ongoing drama, where life and death were separated by fractions of a second, and every decision mattered. This interplay was not just about survival, it was about the shaping of minds, the emergence of strategies, and the slow, inexorable push toward intelligence that would one day define humanity itself. Even as human ancestors evolved, their relationship with the giant crocodile ancestors remained a constant. The fear of the river, the respect for its inhabitants, and the lessons learned in its shadow became embedded in human behavior. These early encounters may have influenced myths, stories, and cultural memory for generations, long before language formalized and civilizations arose. The rivers were teachers, the crocodiles were both challenge and catalyst, and survival demanded an unprecedented level of awareness and cooperation. By studying fossilized remains, footprints, and ancient river deposits, scientists have begun to reconstruct these interactions. Evidence of crocodile-inflicted injuries on human ancestor bones, remains of ancient predation sites, and patterns of habitation near water all point to a complex and dangerous relationship. These findings allow us to glimpse the intensity of these encounters, the constant threat that shaped early human life, and the evolutionary pressures that would ultimately lead to our species' remarkable adaptability. Life 2.9 million years ago was relentless. Every sunrise brought opportunity and danger, every river crossing was a gamble, and every encounter with a giant predator was a test of wits and courage. Human ancestors were not merely surviving, they were learning, adapting, and evolving in response to threats that were at the time insurmountable. The giant crocodile ancestors, formidable and unforgiving, were an ever-present force, sculpting behavior and intelligence through the most primal of lessons, life and death. In the end,